Welcome into Outkick the Show, Supreme Court Senate Judiciary Hearing Edition. I hope all of you are having fantastic, what day is it? Tuesdays, wherever you may be. My name is Clay Travis. This is Outkick the Show, and occasionally there are huge stories that I am fascinated by that often have nothing at all to do with sports. We started doing this when I would break down all of the debate shows. And I'm going to continue to do this with massive stories that are out there because I think the media is doing a bad job of handling them. So we are going to dive all in on this. But first, I want to tell you, it's Tuesday. You may want to get your gambling fix on. And if you do, you can go to sportsbookreview.com and make sure you get the best numbers you can possibly get, whether it's NFL, whether it's college football, wherever you go, you can be hooked up and you will be ready to go, all right? Same thing is true of my guy, Ryan Kelly. Wherever you are across the country, if you need a mortgage, if you need to wipe out all of your credit card debt, if you need somewhere out there across the landscape of this country to wipe out your credit card debt, to wipe out your student loan debt, to take advantage of the fact that you own a home and that home values have been increasing, now is the time to make that decision, okay? Now is the time to go to thehomeloanexpert.com. Tell them Clay Travis sent you. I'll give you a free Outkick VIP, which entitles you to a signed copy of my new book. My new book, Republicans Buy Sneakers 2, is out a week from today. I sent out the link. It's pinned at the top of my Twitter page. If you haven't already bought it, then I would appreciate you buying it and also giving it to somebody who hates me, so that they can read the entire book and be driven even more insane by how logical, by how reasonable, and by how rational all of my arguments are in that book. It's called Republicans Buy Sneakers 2. It's $17 right now on Amazon. It'll be in every bookstore in America on Tuesday, the 25th. A lot of people asking if I'm going to be going around on tour. The challenge with touring, honestly, is that I've got radio obligations, I've got TV obligations. I've got so much to take care of in addition to my family and everything else. I'm not going to be on the road that much for live events. So if you want an autographed copy, the only way I can guarantee you get an autographed copy is if you sign up for Outkick VIP. All Outkick VIPs will get autographed copies. All right? It is also on Audible for all you knuckleheads out there who can't read and just want to hear me talk for 9 straight hours. I read everything in the book. 9 straight hours. You can listen to the entire thing. It is all out there. All right, let's dive in to this Brett Kavanaugh story. Before I get started on the Brett Kavanaugh story, because inevitably there are going to be a lot of people who say, oh, well, you believed a woman in this case and you didn't believe somebody else in some other case. Let me start by saying this. That is because I actually look at the facts of the case. I don't go and analyze things from the perspective of, oh, a woman said this, and therefore I believe a woman is more likely to be telling the truth, so I'm going to believe her. Or a man said this, and I believe a man is more likely telling the truth, so I am going to go believe him. Or a black person, or a white person, or an Asian person, or a Hispanic person. I do something crazy that I learned in law school. I look at all of the available facts that I can find, and I analyze it. And then I determine who I think is telling the truth, as if I were a jury that is sitting in a courtroom listening to a case be made public. Okay? So, as a prelude to my analysis of Brett Kavanaugh, I will say this. In the Ezekiel Elliott case, I did not believe Ezekiel Elliott's accuser, and I did not believe that Ezekiel Elliott deserved a 6-game suspension. In the Peyton Manning case, I did not believe Peyton Manning's accuser. I did not believe that he committed a sexual assault when he mooned her in a locker room at 19 years old. In the Jameis Winston case, I believed his accuser because she immediately went to the police and said she was raped in the immediate aftermath of that evening and has continued to say since then. In the case of, there's another one out there, I believe Courtney Smith. I believe that Courtney Smith was abused based on all the evidence that I have seen in the Ohio State case. You do not have to agree with me. But right there, I gave you 4 cases. In 2 of them, I believed the woman. In 2 of them, I believed the man, okay? I did not make that decision because I believed a man or because I believed a woman. I did so because I looked at all the facts of the case. Now, you don't have to agree with my opinion, right? I'm not saying that you have to agree with my opinion at all in this case, right? So, again, I'm going to have to block this guy. Wait, so you believe the white people and not the black people? Everything is so racially poisoned in this country right now that even your brain doesn't work well, okay? I just said I believed Ezekiel Elliott. I have no idea what race Ezekiel Elliott's accuser is. I just said I believe Peyton Manning. I just said that I believe based on the person and the facts, not based on the race or the gender in a case, okay? You can disagree with me, but the idea that you are making a decision based on race or gender is telling on yourself. If you see a story and you immediately think, oh, that's a black guy, oh, that's a white girl, oh, that's a white guy, oh, that's a black girl, as part of your analysis, to me, you are immediately making it clear that you are making a racial judgment or a gender judgment. A lot of people out there are saying, oh, she deserves to be believed because she's a woman, and some women don't come forward and tell their stories because they are afraid they won't be believed. What sense does that make to believe somebody because otherwise other people might not be willing to come forward? Here's what I believe. If you tell the truth, ultimately, you will be vindicated, okay? If you don't tell the truth, you will not be vindicated. Lying is bad for everyone. White, black, Asian, Hispanic, male, female. The truth will set you free, okay? I am impartial because in law school, I learned something important. When I was in my criminal law class, one of my professors said there are only 3 things that matter in every criminal case: the facts, and the facts. If you argue something other than the facts, then you're probably going to lose a case, okay? You have to rely on the facts to construct an argument to win a case. The facts. So, I am going to begin by reading this woman's accusation directly from the initial place that I saw it, which read from her letter, okay? This is her accusation. Okay, first of all, let me give you a background. This incident allegedly occurred, I believe, in 1982, 36 years ago, when Brett Kavanaugh was 17 years old and this woman was 15 years old. They were in high school, okay? I want to repeat this, they were in high school 36 years ago, and she has never publicly said anything about this publicly since then, okay? She said that in the summer in the early 1980s, she and a friend, Kavanaugh and a friend, both, quote, stumbling drunk, took her into a bedroom during a gathering of teenagers at a house in Montgomery County. If you're not familiar with the Washington, D.C. area, Montgomery County is in Maryland. It's just north of Washington, D.C. It's an affluent suburb in Maryland, just outside of Washington, D.C. While his friend watched, she said Kavanaugh pinned her to a bed on her back and groped her over her clothes, grinding his body against hers and clumsily attempting to pull off her one-piece bathing suit. When she tried to scream, he put his hand over her mouth. She then said, "I thought he might inadvertently kill me. He was trying to attack me and remove my clothing." She said she was able to escape when his friend, Kavanaugh's friend, who was also in the room with him, jumped on top of them, sending all 3 tumbling to the ground. She said she ran from the broom and eventually fled the house. She said she told no one of the incident until 2012, all right, 6 years ago, when she was in couples therapy with her husband, and she did not at that point name Brett Kavanaugh, but she said just that someone from an elitist boys' school who was highly respected and high-ranking went on in Washington. The notes say 4 boys were involved, but Ford says that was an error on the therapist's part. All right. Now, let's dive into this. I want to begin with this analysis by saying, let's take it outside of the woman. Let's take it outside of the man. Let's pretend that in 1982, this woman had gone to the police, and she had said, "I was at someone's house. We were drinking beer, I went into a bedroom with a couple of guys. They put on the music, and one of them climbed on top of me and tried to engage in some sort of amorous activity with me. When I yelled out, he covered my mouth. Then his friend tackled me, and they started wrestling, and I left. Okay? That's basically her entire story. Would anybody out there at all believe that a crime had been committed? Would you believe, if you were a DA, and I've done criminal law, I don't believe there is a scintilla of chance that even if this story were 100% true, that this is a crime. Now, it's important to acknowledge that both Kavanaugh and this witness, who she named, deny that this ever happened. Okay? They deny that this incident ever happened. But I am going to, on its face, presume that this woman is telling the truth. Okay? A 15-year-old girl says, I was drinking along with other guys who were insanely drunk. She said they were really drunk at a house party. We went upstairs to a bedroom. One of those guys climbed on top of me and tried to make out with me. And while he was trying to make out with me, I said no. He tried to cover my mouth to keep me from screaming. And then his buddy tackled him and they started wrestling and I left. Okay? That is not a crime. There is no way on earth that in 1982 or 2018, this is being prosecuted as a crime. She says nothing about any kind of penetration. She says nothing about any kind of nudity. She says nothing about any kind of forced kidnapping or prolonged being held in a room without her consent. And there are two guys in the room, and the two guys end up drunkenly wrestling. Okay? She has also been drinking, so her recollection, even in 1982, would have been in question. Also, her experience of what was going on might have been in question. When she says she was screaming, Kavanaugh, if it actually happened, might have thought, oh my God, she's screaming bloody murder. Just don't scream. We're joking around. We are wrestling here. Right? There is 0% chance that this was ever going to be prosecuted as a crime. Okay? That's where we want to start. If this was not ever going to be prosecuted as a crime, why is it coming out now? And why did this woman stay silent about this for almost 30 years and not name Kavanaugh for 36 years? Brett Kavanaugh has been a public figure for a long time. My general belief is, if you suddenly decide to go public with a story featuring a famous man, and there is no evidence to support that you ever told anybody about it, that is something that I'm not inclined to believe when you are standing alone. There is an unimpeachable record of Brett Kavanaugh. Now look, there are lots of you out there who can disagree with Brett Kavanaugh's legal rulings. Most people who disagree with Brett Kavanaugh's legal rulings, frankly, are not smart enough to understand how the law works or even the methodology by which he would reach his rulings. But you cannot like the guy that Donald Trump is going to appoint. You have a right to oppose him. But the Constitution allows a Supreme Court justice to be seated as long as 50 senators vote for him. Okay? Here is the truth. I think we are setting an awful precedent when we hold Supreme Court Judiciary Committee hearings on accusations leveled against high school boys or girls. I don't know what the standard should be. It makes me a little bit queasy that people go back through college writings for newspapers, that they go through law review articles that anybody's ever written. I don't particularly like that. I think that you should become an adult and have an adult job before we start to judge you on your work product. If you were 19 and you wrote a column in a school newspaper that people decide is offensive, I don't think that should make you not eligible to be employed when you are 53, okay? I have a problem in general with going all the way back to college. But at least if you go back to college, you are examining the work of someone who is an adult for purposes of the law. Even if this case had been prosecuted in 1982, it would have been prosecuted as a juvenile court matter. And as a juvenile court matter, it would have been forever sealed once he became an adult. Why do we have that position enshrined in the American judicial system? Why do we eliminate the records of kids for things that they did before they were 18 years old? Precisely for this exact reason. Because even when kids do bad things, we don't want those bad things to follow these kids for the rest of their lives. Okay? That should not be what defines you. If you don't like Brett Kavanaugh, there are ample things he has done as a professional for you to combat him with. And the truth of the matter is this: none of those attacks have been enough to keep him from becoming a Supreme Court justice. I am troubled by this because there is zero corroborating evidence of this woman's story, and also because it's 36 years ago. And as a result, it has no bearing on what kind of person he is at the age of 53. He denies it, but even if everything she said in this story was true, whether the person is a Republican or a Democrat, I would be fine with them being a Supreme Court judge. If this guy was a liberal, she would have never come forward with this story either. She might well have written a letter to her congressperson endorsing him to be a Supreme Court justice. If you are a politically partisan person and you decide that something that happened when you guys were in high school disqualifies someone, especially when it was not a criminal offense, you, my friend, do not deserve to be taken seriously. I'm sorry. You can make your accusation, but if I am sitting in the Senate right now, whether I am a Republican or a Democrat, this story is not changing my opinion one iota. You either liked Brett Kavanaugh before or you didn't. I'm not going to change my vote for who should be a Supreme Court justice going all the way back to when they were 17 years old. I'm just not. And again, if you are a politically partisan person, this makes no sense. Stop. There are bulletproof Supreme Court candidates. There are no bulletproof Supreme Court candidates if the standard is, what did you do when you tried to make out with a girl, potentially, in 1982 when you were 17 years old? Okay? This is not a crime. That's what I also want to say. Matt Damon was right when he said the Me Too era has become way too expansive. There is a difference between a guy walking up to a girl in a crowded bar on a dance floor who grabs her ass. That is uncouth. It's not behavior that I would want to endorse, but it's not sexual assault. This is not sexual assault. There is a difference between trying to rape somebody and trying to make out with somebody awkwardly when you are in high school. I think about this from the perspective of a parent. We have got to stop criminalizing every little thing and arguing that this is connected to Me Too. This is not like Harvey Weinstein. This is not someone who was in a position of power and used it to take advantage of other people allegedly. This is a high school kid who probably hadn't kissed very many girls in his life, who awkwardly, even if you accept every single iota of her accusation, who awkwardly at a drunken high school party went into a bedroom with a girl and tried to make out with her in the early 1980s. I don't know how many of you have ever been at a high school party where there was alcohol. I don't know how many of you have ever been a teenage boy and tried to figure out how to hook up with a girl for the first time, or take off a bra, or kiss a girl for the first time. This story doesn't make sense. It just doesn't make sense. And again, I think the significance of the allegation matters. Okay, if you go back and look at the 4 cases that I gave you, one of the things I do is say, what's the significance of this accusation? People say, oh, Peyton Manning mooned that woman. It was sexual assault. And my answer is, the hell it was. It was not sexual assault when Peyton Manning decided to moon a woman in a public training room. Might have been uncouth behavior. That's not sexual assault. Okay? We have to be more reasonable and we have to be more intelligent in the way that we apply the rules. And here's the deal. If you are out there arguing that somebody doesn't deserve to be a Supreme Court justice because of what happened when they were 17 years old, of which there is zero evidence it actually happened. In fact, there's a witness who says it did not happen. This is a standard I'm not willing to accept. I think we have gone far beyond the pale of what is acceptable behavior and what is acceptable analysis when it comes to Supreme Court behavior. I was too young for the Clarence Thomas hearings to pay a lot of attention to them, but at least Clarence Thomas was being accused of sexual harassment by somebody that he was supervising while he was an adult. We are now accusing a high school boy of behaving at worst in an unsophisticated and uncivil manner with a girl that he was trying to kiss. It makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense that this is the standard at play. If you can't beat the guy, then acknowledge you can't beat him. And also, this is also crazy, all right? This is also insane. I think that a lot of reasonable Democrats, even senators in their offices, are sitting back and saying, this is a bridge too far. I really do. I think Dianne Feinstein probably thought this is a bridge too far, which is why she didn't bring up this letter initially in the hearings or with Brett Kavanaugh. I think she is a reasonable person who probably has had kids of her own and knows the difference between sexual assault and awkward attempts to kiss girls. Also, again, I'm assuming that everything she said is true, and there's no evidence whatsoever that it's true. One of the things you do when you're in law school is you learn a method of analysis where you say, okay, let's assume that everything that has been alleged here is 100% true. Do we have a case? Is there an issue at play here? Does this deserve to go to a jury to make a determination? Is there a factual uncertainty? Here, I'm telling you, even if you assume everything that she said is true, this is not a prosecutable case. This is not somebody actually committing a crime. So when I look at this case, I think it's just an utter ridiculous joke, okay? You don't like Kavanaugh, fine. You don't want to vote for him, fine. But not voting for him because somebody in 1982 says he tried to make out with her that there's no evidence of, this is the worst. I want you to think about this for a minute. This is the worst thing that they could find about this dude, okay? I want you to think about this for a minute. This guy is 53 years old. He has been through 6 different FBI clearances. The worst thing they could find about him is that when he was 17 years old, there is an allegation that he tried to make out with a girl who was around his own age at a party when both of them had been drinking. Think about that for a minute. I don't know that this guy is a saint, but if you went through every decision that you've ever made in your life, is the worst allegation that could be publicly made against you that when you were a teenager at a summer house party, while you were drunk, you tried to make out with a girl and she didn't want to make out with you and she was unhappy with you at that party? This is unbelievable. This is an unbelievable story that this is the worst thing they could find about him. This makes me think he's even a better guy. That this is literally the worst thing that they could find anybody to say. He denies it, but it's totally uncorroborated. There's zero evidence to support her claims. It's unbelievable. It's an unbelievable story. Now, I haven't read a single comment while I've been talking, okay? I'm going to block. People are saying I need to block this Eddie guy. He's been talking the whole time. Eddie's gone. He'll never be able to return, okay? What I am saying here is pretty straightforward. This is not a crime. There is nothing illegal about what he did, even if he did it, and you accept the truth of everything that she said. It would not have been prosecuted. If it had been prosecuted, he's a juvenile, and the court record would have been sealed and never been public. And he denies it and has a witness that it never happened. This is one of the biggest sham things I have ever seen. I believe that men in positions of power who abuse women should be held accountable. This is none of those things. This is not remotely Me Too. This is a high school kid trying to make a decision to hook up with a girl, and potentially doing it awkwardly at the face value of all of her commentary. That's the truth. All right, what questions do you guys have? And again, the people out there who disagree with me, you don't disagree with me on the facts. You don't like this guy. You don't like Brett Kavanaugh. You are using whatever you can to keep Brett Kavanaugh from becoming a Supreme Court justice. And what I'm telling you is this can't be the standard. The standard can't be when you were in high school, a girl claims that you tried to make out with her and hook up with her, and she was uncomfortable, and then your buddy ended up wrestling you, and everybody was drinking at a high school party. This can't be the standard for what we're setting for what Supreme Court justices have to uphold. And I would say the same thing if Hillary Clinton had won and this were Merrick Garland's hearing and the exact same allegation were being made against him. I think reasonable people out there, guys and girls who have ever been to a high school party where people were drinking alcohol, have been through awkward encounters like this when they were 15, 16, 17, 18 years old, and they understand this is not criminal behavior, it's not ideal behavior, but the idea that this would keep you from being a Supreme Court justice is thoroughly insane. Okay? And I think a lot of senators who have kids feel the same way. They do not want this standard being applied to their kids. Okay, questions. Any questions out there about you guys? Again, most of you, I'm going to be honest, I'm looking over at the comments every now and then. Most of you are not asking intelligent questions. I have yet to see an intelligent question asked in any of the comments, okay? Most of the comments are going to be partisan. What I told you from the beginning is I don't consider Democrat or Republican. I don't consider white or black. I don't consider male or female. Let me give you an example, okay? I also don't agree with the idea that when you make an accusation, you should be able to avoid being rigorously questioned on it because you say, oh, some women aren't believed. Let me tell you something. The entire purpose of our criminal justice system and our civil justice system requires zealous adversarial attack. In other words, if I rep you, I'm going to defend you to the end of the earth. If I rep the other side, I'm going to defend the other side to the end of the earth. For everybody out there who's like, oh, this woman doesn't deserve to have her story questioned, I say to you, bull, bull, bull. You need to be entirely examined in a rigorous fashion because that's what happens. Let me give you an example. One of my favorite books ever, and they turned it into a phenomenal movie, is Atticus Finch. Okay? Atticus Finch, before we got the second book, Go Tell It on the Watchmen or whatever it was, by Harper Lee. It's one of the great books about unfairness in the criminal justice system that has ever been written in American fictional history. Okay? In that book, the climax of the book is Atticus Finch at trial defending the accused black man who was innocent, Tom Robinson, I think, who was accused of raping Mayella Ewell, a black man accused of raping a white woman. When Mayella Ewell got on the stand, do you know what happened? Atticus Finch did not defer to her saintly womanhood. He did not defer to her Southern virtue. He did not defer to the incredibly graphic details required. He directly examined her and proved that she was lying about having been raped by Tom Robinson. And do you know how he did that? By attacking the facts of her story. That is what good lawyers do. That is what good judges do. That is what good senators should do. They should ask questions to figure out what the truth is, regardless of race, regardless of gender, regardless of religion, regardless of ethnicity, regardless of what your identity is. I have got a crazy idea, okay? I have got a crazy idea. I think that your race and your gender and your religion and your sexual orientation has absolutely nothing to do with whether you are telling the truth. I look at the facts of the cases, and here, beyond a shadow of a doubt, there is nothing at all here. And if I were a senator, whether I were a Democrat or a Republican, I would base my decision on whether to vote for Brett Kavanaugh on everything I'd already seen and not one iota this new allegation. Because even if you accept the veracity of every aspect of her allegation, it is still not a crime. Not in 1982, not in 2018. There's no way this case gets prosecuted. And if by chance it did get prosecuted, it would be a juvenile case and it would have been sealed and destroyed the minute that all the parties became 18 years old. This, my friends, is a solid analysis of this story, probably a better discussion than you will get anywhere else in the media. I like to talk about big stories, especially big stories that are not being covered adequately. This is one of them. My name is Clay Travis. I appreciate all of you and all the time that you spend with me. If you enjoyed my discussion here, if you enjoy my show in general, I talk about everything and I write about everything. This is Outkick the Show. My name is Clay Travis. DBAP, boys and girls. And I'm telling you right now, SBAP sometimes makes sense here. All right, love you guys. I'll see y'all. Bye. Love you.